the 12th day of Chodesh Nisan, and we are learning Daf Ches Amud Aleph of Maseches Shekalim. We left off one line into the Mishnah on Daf Zayin Amud Beis at the beginning of the third parak of Maseches Shekalim, with a Mishnah that we have already quoted earlier in the Masechta, discussing the 3 times a year that they would be Tarim the Lishka. Says the Mishnah as follows: B'shloisha prakim b'shana Tarim Lishka. They would withdraw the funds from the Beis Hamikdash treasury 3 times in the year, and those times were b'pros haPesach, halfway of the Pesach, which we explained was halfway through the 30-day period before Pesach, so 15 days before Pesach, which is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, b'pros haAtzeres, 15 days before Atzeres, before Shavuos, and before Chag, and 15 days before Chag, before Sukkot, which would be on Rosh Hashanah, or rather Erev Rosh Hashanah in this case, as we will see. Veheim Granashel Meiser Behema, and these are also the times for Meiser Behema, when they would separate out the Meiser Behema every time that you have a group of animals. So 1/10 of those animals is called Meiser Behema. The Divrei Rabbi Akiva, this is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Ben Isai, Omer Ben Azai says, Be'esrim v'tish ba'adar, uve'echad b'sivan, uve'esrim v'tish ba'av, that the times for Meiser Behema were not the same times as the Trumas Halishka. Instead, he says they were Be'esrim v'tish ba'adar, the 29th day of Adar, and Be'echad b'sivan, the first day of Sivan, and Be'esrim v'tish ba'av, the 29th day of Av. And we are going to discuss exactly what those dates are about a little bit later. Says the Gemara, a third opinion about when Meiser Behema happened. Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon both say Be'echad b'nisan, Be'echad b'sivan, B'chav tes be'elul, that Meiser Behema was taken on the 1st of Nisan, the 1st of Sivan, and B'chav tes be'elul, and the 29th day of the month of Elul. It should be on Rosh Hashanah, but you cannot do it on Rosh Hashanah, says the Mishnah. Why on the 29th of Elul? Because it's Yom Tov. You can't separate Meiser Behema on Yom Tov. You cannot take off Maseches on Yom Tov. You can't separate 1/10 of the animals on Yom Tov. Therefore, the Chachamim pushed it 1 day earlier, and they made it on the 29th day of Elul. So we have 3 shittas, each of them with 3 separate dates of exactly when Meiser Behema happened. Says the Gemara as follows. Gemara 7 lines from the bottom of Zayin Meves, says the Gemara as follows. Rabbi Abau says, Rabbi Abau kol hein ditaninan pras palga. Anytime that the Mishnah uses the word pras, palga, it means half. That's what the Lashon pras means. Palga de lamed yom kodim lamayid shid darshim behil chosav. Halfway through the 30-day period before a Yom Tov, that you are learning the halachas of that Yom Tov, of which, of course, we are very much stuck in to the Shloshim Yom Kodem Chag. We're only 4 days before Pesach now, so we are within those 30 days and very close to the end of it, and we're learning the halachas the whole way through. It's interesting to note that this shita very clearly seems to be indicating that even for Shavuos, you would have to have 30 days of limud halacha, which is not unanimous everywhere else in Shas, because since when are there so many halachas or shuas that you need to learn? Nevertheless, says the Gemara, Granos, the same day that you have for Trumas Halishka, you are also going to have those days for the Meiser Behema. Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan, it makes good sense to say that this is when we are going to take Meiser Behema, because this correlates to Pirkei Leda, around the times of the year where animals give birth to their young, meaning that there are animals that give birth before Pesach at the end of the winter. There are late animals that give birth just before Shavuos, and then the rest of them. The rest of those animals are only gonna give birth sometime before Shavuos, between Shavuos and Sukkot, and therefore you have Meiser Behema that correlates with these 3 primary birthing seasons, depending on the animals in question. Rav Acha v'Rabbi Tanchum bar Chia b'shem Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi They say as follows: It has nothing to do with the birthing seasons. It is around the same time as the Trumas Halishka, the same day as the Trumas Halishka, which is around the time of the Shalosh Regalim, so that people would have their animals available for the Ole Regalim. Meaning, you want to make sure that people have their behemoths ready to come to Yerushalayim, so they would take off the Ma'aseh Behema at that point in time. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yudin, Shelo Yovel Lidei Bal Ta'acher. And the third reason, so that you don't end up violating the Isser of Ma'aseh Behema. They had these 3 dates established for Ma'aseh Behema, so that nobody would end up violating the Isser of Bal Ta'acher, of delaying bringing a korban. The Torah says that you are not allowed to delay once you have a chiyuv to bring a korban. You are not allowed to delay it. So they would correlate it with the times of Alila Regel, so that people would be able to come and bring their Ma'aseh Behema on time. So Amar Rabbi Yosa says, Rabbi Yosa Kol Hamisha Tivloi, anybody that leaves their animals in a state of tevel, meaning without having taken Ma'aser, over Bal Ta'acher, that already makes them chayiv the Isser of Bal Ta'acher, and that's the nafkamina here. Meaning, once the Chacham said that the animals born up until this point in time, you have to take Ma'aseh Behema. If you don't by then, you have violated the Isser of Bal Ta'acher. Says the Gemara, top of Ches Amud Aleph, Taman Taninan. There we taught there, meaning the Mishnah in Becharis, and the very beginning of Rosh Hashanah. Rameir says, "Be'echad be'elu Rosh Hashanah l'Ma'aseh Behema." Rameir told us in the very first Mishnah of Maseches Rosh Hashanah that the first day of the month of Elul is a Rosh Hashanah for Ma'aseh Behema. So how does this relate to the din of 3 times that the Chacham said you have to take Ma'aseh Behema? What exactly is this din of Rosh Hashanah for Ma'aseh Behema? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon said, "Be'echad b'Tishrei," on the first day of the month of Tishrei. That is the Rosh Hashanah Ma'aseh Behema, and Ben Azai says ha'eluliyim, the Elulniks, the ones that are born in Elul, they are grouped together for Ma'aseh Behema all by themselves. So you have 3 shittas here. What exactly is going on? So Amar Rabbi Chuna says, Rabbi Chuna, time of the Rabbi Meir, the reason for Rabbi Meir is, how do we explain this? Ad kan hein matzos leiled min hayeshanos. Up until this point in time, the animals give birth from the from conception that happened in Nisan. Meaning, up until the first day of Elul, any babies, any animals that are born were conceived before Nisan. Meaning, the gestation period is 5 months or more than 5 months. So up until the beginning of Elul, it means that they were conceived before Nisan. Mikan va'elech, nevertheless, anything that is born hereafter, mikan va'elech, they are giving birth from the new ones, meaning from conceptions that happened after Nisan. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Bun b'shem Rabbi Chuna says, Rabbi Yosef bar Rabbi Bun in the name of Rabbi Chuna, time the Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Lazar, the reason of Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon is the pasuk. Pasuk says as follows: Love shu karim hatzain, that the sheep. There's the pasuk in Tehillim. The sheep are wearing karim, are wearing pillows, meaning that they're very big. Those are the ones that became pregnant before Nisan, meaning that's why they're looking plump. And the pasuk continues, "Va'amakim ya'atfu bar," and the valleys are going to cloak themselves with bar, with food. These are the late ones that haven't yet conceived before Nisan. So va'amakim ya'atfu bar elu ha'afelus. These are the late ones. Yisro af yashiru elu ve'elu nichnasim nadir lehis aser. These ones and those ones all come together into the pen in order to have Ma'aser taken from them. Meaning, they're all going to be able to be taken Ma'aser together. They're going to join together. Says the Gemara, Amar ben Azai, says Ben Azai, That works well for the opinion of Rameir and Rav Elazar and Rav Shimon. But Ben Azai, who says that Elul is separate, any babies born during Elul, those have to be meised separately. Ben Azai, Amar Ben Azai says, "Ha'el ve'elu amrim kach," since the Tanaim say like this, meaning some Tanaim say like this. This is the beginning of the year for Maseches is the first of Elul. Ve'elu amrim kach, and some say that the beginning of the year is the first of Tishrei. So you ha'eluliyim is asking me atzman. I'm going to be machmir for both. I'm going to say any babies born before the first of Elul are going to be measured in one group, and any babies that are born after the beginning of Tisha are going to be measured in another group. And Elul babies, Elul behemoths, those ones are going to be measured in a separate group together. Says the Gemara, how does this work? So if you have one group that's born behei ba'av, behei be'elul, behei b'tishrei. So you have not behei ba'av, but behei. No, behei meaning bechamisha. That you have 5 that are born in Av, and 5 that are born in Elul, and 5 that are born in Tishrei. Ein mitztarfin. There's no ma'aser behema here, meaning there's no 10 animals to even take ma'aser from, because they are born in 3 separate time zones. You have before Elul, after Tishrei, and Elul. They're not going to join together for you to take ma'aser from any of them. If you have 5 that are born in Tishrei and another 5 that are born in Av, meaning like 10 months later in Av, these ones will join together. Meaning that whole section of the year, that's going to join together. Says the one, hold on a second. Ben Azai is making a pshara. He's making some kind of compromise between these two opinions of Rav Elazar and Rav Shimon on one hand, and Meir on the other hand. Well, why is he making such a pshara? These are his students. Why isn't he just saying, this is my opinion? Since when does the Rebbe make a pshara between his Talmidim? Says Ben Azai machriya al divrei Talmidav. He's coming to try to figure out how to work with his students' opinions. Says the one Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Meisha, b'shem Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak. They explain shechein nechleku ala avos ha'olam. No. This machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Elazar, that's not their original machlokes. This is a much older machlokes, and this was nechleku ala avos ha'olam, the godfathers of the world. Who are these fathers of the world? So ma'anin, who are these people? Avos ha'olam, these chavra. Tan Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Rabbi Yirmiyah in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah, this is referring to the great Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva, none other than Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva, and it's between those opinions that Ben Azai is trying to be machriya. Says the Gemara, hold on a second. Ben Azai chaver v'talmid haya de Rabbi Akiva. If this is true, then what we are saying here is that Ben Azai wasn't just a talmid of Rabbi Akiva. He wasn't only a talmid; he was a talmid chaver of Rabbi Akiva. In Tamar Rabbi, because if you want to say that Rabbi Akiva was only Ben Azai's Rebbe and not his chaver, meaning they weren't colleagues at all, is Barnash Amr Rabbi Hol ve'elu Amru Kach ve'elu Amru Kach, but all of a sudden you'd have a Talmud that says to his Rebbe, well, since you hold like that and the other rabbi holds like that, well, then I'm going to, meaning if he was glad a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, as we know he was a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, so then why is he even talking about Rabbi Shmuel's opinion at all? Meaning, Rabbi, you said like that, and Rabbi Shmuel says like that, so I'll have a third opinion. That doesn't make any sense. It has to be that he's a Talmud Chaver, that he is a Talmud that has risen to the status of Chaver. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Avim b'shem Rabbi Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak says the following: Shama la min hadat. We learn from this din of our Mishnah. Amar le Ben Azai said to Rabbi Akiva, Al hachalukin anu mitztarim. I am bothered by the machlokes that people have, that in halacha ella shebat alachlek aleinu es ha shavin. Meaning he said to Rabbi Akiva, Al hachalukim anu mitztarim. I'm upset about the machlokes, but you came not only to make to explain that they were machloksim, but even to explain that they were machloksim about places that we thought everybody agreed. This is with regards to a particular din of machlokes beisham beisilal, where Rabbi Akiva said not only do they disagree on the thing that it says they disagree on, they even have a disagreement on things that we think that they don't disagree that they agree on. So Ben Azai was challenging Rabbi Akiva. This means Ben Azai chavav v'talmid havilu Rabbi Akiva. You have to conclude that Ben Azai was not just a Talmud, if he's telling of his Rebbe, but that he was also a Talmud chaver, that he had risen to the stature that he could debate and dispute his Rebbe. So in the Temer Rabbi, so because if you will say that Rabbi Akiva was exclusively his Rebbe, is bar nash amal Rabbi. How could you come to tell us that people disagree about things that we think that they agree on? I mean, how would he have challenged his Rebbe like that? It wouldn't have made any sense. That would not have been Mukavadi. Says the Gemara. Tanan Tanin. We learned in the Mishnah over there. What did we learn? Kol Hanoi Ladin Me'echad B'Tishrei Ad Chavtes Velo. Anything that is born, meaning any animals that are born from Rosh Hashanah, meaning Echad B'Tishrei, until Chavtes Velo, until the very last day of the year, the 29th day of Elul. Harei Elu Mitzarfin. All of them are going to join together. Chamish Livnei Rosh Hashanah, Chamish La'achar Rosh Hashanah. If you have 5 before Rosh Hashanah, 5 after Rosh Hashanah, Ein Mitzarfin, they don't join together. Chamish Livnei Hagorin. 5 that are before the Gorin, meaning the time of taking Ma'aser v'chamish la'achar Gorin, harei mitzarfin, they do join together. Meaning, we have designated dates of this is when you should have Ma'aser Behema done by. But what if you don't have a group? So the 5 that are born before the date, the 5 that are born after the date, as long as they're within the same calendar year, you can join them together. And that would be the nafkamina between the Rosh Hashanah for Ma'aser Behema and the times that we say that you have to that you have to have your Meiser done by, which is a rabbinic decree, right? Meaning Meiser Behema is a din deraisa, so it goes to the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So what about these 3 times a year that you have to take your Meiser Behema? Yeah, those are the deadline dates that you have to make sure that you get it done by. But if you have a group from before the deadline and a group that are after the deadline, they would join together for the next deadline. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yosef, says Rabbi Yosef, Hada Imeris, this din of the Mishnah tells you, Ma'aser Behema loy asu oisa loy kechanat v'loy keshlish. That when they set up the dates for Ma'aser Behema, they did not patent this after chanata. Chanata means the beginning of a fruit tree. V'loy keshlish, and not like a third grown, which is the din of when we say the grain is now in season. So chanata is the beginning of the fruit development. A shlish is the beginning of grain development. So in taban kechanat, if you will say that it's the same din as chanata, meaning with regards to the ma'aser of fruit, that these anything that has chanata by a particular date is considered to be part of the season. So litni kol ha me'uvarim me'echad b'tishrei ad eser b'tish b'elul. Then what you should rather say is not all the babies that are born, but all of the pregnancies that are from the 1st of Tishrei until the 29th day of Elul. Meaning, chanata means the emergence of the bud. What's the emergence of the bud for animals? That would be pregnancy. Says the Gemara, in tamar kishlish, and if you were to tell me that it's like the din of shlish, like a third grown of grain, litni kala neiladim ad esem shnayim be'elul. Then you would have to tell me that all of the babies that are born up until the 22nd day of Elul. Why? Because for the first 8 days of a animal's life, it cannot be put on the mizbeach because it's not yet fully completed. So you have to wait another 8 days in order for it to be complete, and that would be a shlish, meaning it's now a viable growth. So that would require you to make the cutoff date of any animal that's born by the 22nd of Elul, because anything after the 22nd of Elul is not going to be able to hit its shlish, its third growth, meaning it's grown 1/3, meaning it is viable as to be used as a korban. So that would only happen after Rosh Hashanah, and then it would be part of the next year. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon b'shem Rabbi Bibi Rabbi Chia says as follows: Ki shlish also said, no. The din is like a shlish. However, Rabbi Shimon, the Mishnah is going in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says mechusas man, that if you are lacking the end timing, meaning it hasn't yet grown 8 days, you can still put it in to take Meiser from it. You are allowed to do that. You don't have to wait until it is 8 days old in order to count it as part of the year for Meiser. So, but it is still patterned after the idea of Shlish, that this is when it is fully grown. Just Rabbi Shimon has a caveat that it's not strictly necessary, but the fundamentals are there. Says the Gemara, "Come Rabbi Mana im Rabbi Shammai." Rabbi Mana stood up with Rabbi Shammai, meaning he got up to speak to him. Amali says to him, "At Amart Chada Milsa, you say this one thing. Do you really believe that?" Taman Taninan, there we learned in the Mishnah bin Azai, it says that the Elulnik babies, they have Ma'aseh together. That doesn't include until the 29th of Elul? Of course it includes until the 29th of Elul. Islach Meimar ben Azai Shimon, and then what you're going to say is that Ben Azai holds like Rabbi Shimon and not like the Rabbanan, which means that both Ben Azai and the din of the Mishnah, Islach Meimar ben Azai Rabbi Shimon, meaning it would have to be that even Ben Azai, meaning you have Rabbi Shimon is like Rabbi Shimon, the Rabbanan are not like Rabbi Shimon, and Ben Azai is like Rabbi Shimon, meaning the majority opinion is against the Rabbanan. Which would be a ridiculous way of putting the Mishnah together. That would be the only way of explaining this, and then it would come out that the majority opinion is against the seemingly majority opinion quoted in the Mishnah, and the Mishnah doesn't speak like that. Says the Gemara, "Come the at Amar al Drabanan." Now that we have explained that Rabbi Shammai's approach is incorrect, Rabbi Mana goes back to say what the Gemara was saying, which is, just as you're going to say with regards to the Shita of the Rabbanan, that you would leave it for the next year, meaning any animal born after the 22nd of Elul is going to be left for the next year to join with the next group. And they are grouped together with the animals of the year. Kain at Amar al Ben Azai. You have to say the same thing with Ben Azai. Menichel legaron haba, that you are going to push it off. Any animal that's born after the 22nd of Elul, you leave until the next season, which would be Prus ha Pesach, 15 days before Pesach. That would be the correct time to do it. Ve'mis asres im bnei elulim, and they would join together with the Elulnik babies that were born after the 22nd of Elul. Says the Gemara, Amr Rabbi Chia or Rabbi Chuna. One of the two. We saw Rabbi Chuna before, but it seems that this is Rabbi Chia. Zeus Emeres. This teaches us Yom Shabachar Mechusar Zman Bahen. Anytime that the Bachar is missing a few days, meaning is an early premature Bachar. We've been speaking about Ma'aseh Behemah. We have not yet been speaking about Bachar, but he wants to extend this to the din of Bachar. They are going to count towards his first year, meaning premature animals are assigned to the year that they were born in, even though you couldn't use it for that period of time, meaning you're going to kick them ahead until the next Ma'aseh period, even though they haven't yet hit 8 days. We'll say once they hit 8 days, it turns out lemafreya retroactively that they are part of this year. So this will be the same din with Bechar. So Amar Rabbi Mana, Amar Rabbi Yoina, Rabbi Yoina, Amar Rabbi Yoina, it says Rabbi Yoina, Abba, no, sorry, the way to read this is Amar Rabbi Mana, says Rabbi Mana, Amar Rabbi Yoina Abba, my father Rabbi Yoina told me, Shama la min hada, you learn from this din. Kala b'chara, you learn this din from the pasuk. Kala b'chara asher yivaleid b'characha hazachar takdish l'Hashem lekecha. Any b'chara that will be born, hazachar takdish, the male ones you have to make kadosh. Ha ketza. So how do you read this pasuk? Ha b'char asher ha ketza. How do you read this pasuk? Mishas leidasa b'char asher yivaleid. Bachar, once it is born, mishas leidaso at moina shana, you already begin counting its year. Once it hits birth, You don't have to wait to 8 days until it is counted part of that year. And that is the end of that Mishnah. The next Mishnah begins. We'll just read the first line. B'shalosh kupas shel shalosh sayin termin es halishka. And we saw this Mishnah earlier as well, that the b'shalosh kupas shel shalosh sayin, when you would take the Trumas Halishka, the withdrawal from the temple treasury, so that would be in 3 boxes, each of them being 3 sa'in large. Trumas Halishka, that is how they did the Trumas Halishka. And it was written on them, Aleph Beis Gimel. It was written in the letters Aleph Beis Gimel on them. Rabbi Yishmael says, Yevanis Kosev Aleim, Alpha Beis Gamma. That it wasn't Hebrew letters, it was Greek letters written on it. And we will pick up with that din of the Mishnah and the subsequent Gemara tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing everybody and wishing everybody a beautiful evening as we are marching our way to a Chag Kosher V'Sameach for us and for all of Klal Yisrael. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you on the morrow.